Jr., and I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters Live. I've been looking forward to this. I know it's a little later than usual, but I was out taking care of my own recovery at a meeting tonight. Before we get started, I just want to make a talk about something. A long time ago, I don't like to get political. I really don't. My political views are mine, yours are yours. But, when I was in the street, and I was, mobbed up, and I was, running around and hanging out with John Gotti and my father and everybody, the thing that bothered me the most, the thing that caused me to be angry and violent was when people insulted my intelligence. People try to swindle me or get over on me and thought I was less than and insulted my intelligence. And, it's crazy because when I first got into the mob and I started working for my father, who was, as we all know, a made member of the Gambino family, he told me a long time ago that the government was the real mafia, like they were the real gangsters, and they are. If you look through history, they were all gangsters. Kennedys were gangsters, they were bootleggers. He was a big womanizer. Nixon was a gangster, all of them, But what's going on today, like when I say insult my intelligence, like they found cocaine in the White House. Cocaine in the White House, where the president of the United States lives, the center of the world, they found cocaine. And now they're trying to say that the FBI, the Secret Service, the CIA, all these agencies can't find out who put it there or left it there. Now that insults my intelligence. Me, they gave me 8 years for writing a number. They surely knew how to find me when I did something wrong, and I'm nobody. How could they actually tell the public that they don't know who did that? I mean, I'm not saying that I know who did it or insinuating that Hunter Biden might have done it, the crackhead that is, that's not in recovery, like other crackheads I know who I love that are in recovery, who I was with tonight at a meeting, trying to help people, trying to do the right thing. Is he trying to do the right thing? I don't know. I had a friend of mine who got 10 years for a case and got a 20-year enhancement for a gun. How much time is he going to get for the gun he was with, the illegal weapon he had near his school? So, it just insults my intelligence that these people have the balls to go on TV in front of the public and say they don't know who left it there. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? How do they not know who left cocaine in the White House? And people believe that. It blows my mind. It blows my mind that people could honestly believe that or make excuses for them that it's true. I don't believe for a minute it's true. And it insults my intelligence. It makes me angry. And it's just outrageous. It's outrageous what's going on now, and I don't want to be political. I really don't. But it's just, somewhere along the line, you got to draw a line in the sand and do something or say something. I don't get it. I just don't get it. So evidently, it just goes back in a circle, to where my father, who was a mob guy, how this all ties into the mob, because they are the mob. They are the new mafia, these people. They just do whatever they want and get away with it. And that's another reason why my father always told me, don't ever feel sorry for the public. He said, no matter what we do, what the mafia does to the public, don't feel sorry for them because they deserve everything they get for voting for these people. And I have to say, I'm sorry to say, he was right. Because how could you feel sorry for these people when they put these people in power and believe all this nonsense? So they're going to say that there was cocaine in the White House and nobody knows who it belongs to. The FBI, Secret Service, the CIA, nobody knows. Nobody knows who left it there. Cameras all over the White House, the most secured building in the world, and nobody knows who put it there. So, I mean, I could go on and on about it, but, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I just had to do a little venting because, like I said, I don't like when my intelligence is being, disrespected, it just blows my mind. So now, let me get to some other questions that I want to answer. It says here, I realized that you were not made. No, I wasn't officially made. I wasn't, didn't have the ceremony when I was proposed. I was recognized as a wise guy, as a made member, but I had permission to go on sit downs for myself and represent myself, but I never had the ceremony. It says if a made guy was ever shelved is considered out of the picture by the family, can that guy then walk away from the life if he chooses? Well, I mean, first of all, if you get shelved, it's an embarrassment. It's like you're getting punked out. Like, you're a punk, we're putting you on the shelf, you're a mutt, you did something wrong, and like I think about my father, I think about Tony Lee, I think about guys like that. Like they would have never got shelved, they would have had to kill my father or Tony. Like they would have never accepted being shelved for anything if they did anything wrong, and they were told they were getting shelved. There was no way that they would have sat back and accepted that, So could someone walk away? Why not? I mean, you're already shelved, you're already embarrassed, you're already, so why not walk away? Another one says, Fat Andy was a serious individual. They don't make men like that. They used to, right or wrong. He was a man's man. You got to respect it for sure. My father was a gangster. He was a tough guy. He believed in the mafia, the rules, the code. He lived it. He breathed it. You know what I mean? He instilled it in me. He was definitely a man's man. Another question is, would you do it all over again? And what would you do differently? I'm sure these have been asked before. Would I do it all over again? No, not with the mob. No, I wish I would have stood in school and got an education. Did I love it in the beginning? Yes, I had some great times. I lived large. I was like a prince in the city. I got treated like royalty. But at the end of the day, people suffered. I suffered. My family suffered, and I wouldn't do that part over again. But I would, I would have liked to get an education, get a real job, and live a legitimate life. I wish I could have done that. But that said, do I miss the mob? Do I miss that lifestyle? Yes, I do. At times, I do miss it. I miss the action. I miss the money. Sometimes I do miss the lifestyle. But if I had to do it all over again, hopefully I would have chose a different path. It says here, Richie Gotti messed up a good thing, right? Yeah, that's for sure. Who proposed Richie Gotti for membership? Was it Pete? I know it wasn't John. No, it definitely wasn't John Sr. John Sr. would have never straightened him out if he was home. He used to abuse him, call him names. Pete Gotti, his brother, definitely is the one that straightened him out, made him a captain, which is insane. Richie Gotti, a captain. That now Richie Gotti is gone. He's upstate, hiding out upstate. He doesn't come around no more. He did one bid. That was enough for him. Now he's gone. He robbed all his brother Jeannie's money. Jeannie probably wants to kill him. And he ran away. You know what I mean? He ran away because he robbed all his brother Jeannie's money when Jeannie was in jail. Let's see what we got here. What did you think of the old man, Joe Paterno? Joe Paterno, I liked him. He was a captain in Florida when my father was in Florida. He was a good guy. He loved my father. He did business with my father. They got along great. He was a really nice guy. I got along very well with him. Tough guy, had a great crew with him in Florida. And he was the Gambino captain in Florida when my father was there. A really good guy. Did I know Frank Cali? No, I really didn't know him. I knew of him. I never met him. I was in jail when he was around in Brooklyn. I probably met him a few times, but I didn't know him personally. Not at all. Rain Man is watching from the Philippines. Welcome. I love it. Enjoy the show. What was Fat Andy's favorite Italian dish? Probably pasta fazooli. Made it great. I mean, he made it. My father loved food. He loved peasant food. He loved, he used to call it peasant food, depression food. He loved pasta and peas and pasta and broccoli, and he loved everything. He loved food, and he was a really good cook. His best dish was pasta fazooli and filet de pomodoro. He made them really good. Where was my number business in Jamaica? We had number spots all over Jamaica, Queens, on 119th Street and Sufton. I mean, we had spots all over. We were, I mean, literally in every section of Jamaica, Queens, we had spots. You know, a lot of the people in the neighborhood, African Americans, they worked for us. I mean, mostly all, it was a black business, you know, it was a 90,000, 100,000 a day business. You know, we were taking in numbers, 90,000, 98,000, 110,000. We were doing a lot of business there. We had number spots all over and a lot of bodegas and a lot of pool halls and just out and out number holes. It's crazy now because all the number holes all have lotto machines in them because the government took over the number business. But we had them all over Jamaica. I got arrested right off the Van Wyck. We had our number office in Jamaica, Queens. And it's funny because how I got arrested was there was a house up the corner from where we had the number office that with these Rastafarians were dealing weed out of, and they were under surveillance by the drug task force. And Freddie Hott came to see us one day at the club in Jamaica, and the drug task force spotted him and said, "What is this guy doing in this neighborhood? You know, he hangs out with John Gotti and Tony Lee and all of them." And they called up the organized crime task force, and they put the building under surveillance and took our pictures and made us all. And lo and behold, you know, I got arrested there and went to prison for that. That was in 1989. I got arrested there, and then I got re-indicted again in 90. For, you know, policy for ongoing criminal enterprise. But that was all took place in Jamaica, Queens. And it was around the time a lot of rappers were there too, you know, like 50 Cent and all of them were, there was a lot of stuff going on there with the crack and all that. Cops were getting killed. It was a crazy, crazy time there, but we had our number of spots on lockdown, so it was good. Code all night. Let's see, Anthony, why did Gotti didn't hit back when Eddie Lino, DeChico, and Barriello got hit? You know, that's a good question. That's a question, you know, that Sammy the Bull probably has the answer to. Maybe he just didn't want to start an all-out war. You know, and I know they had sit-downs. I know he had a lot of guys around him, a lot of bodyguards around him at that time. You know, he was traveling, you know, a car in front of him, a car behind him, and he would be in the middle car. You know, I wasn't privy to them conversations, what transpired. You know, that's a good question to ask Sammy. But I would say not to start a war. I mean, he tried to, you know, make peace. I don't know. I don't know the reason. But I know that they did have sit downs and peace was made because they didn't want to kill John, the Lucchese's and the Genoveses. Let's see, they're coming in fast here, fast and furious. Yeah, so Frank Piccolo got murdered in a phone booth in Connecticut. He was a captain in the Gambino family. He was good friends with my father, believe it or not, and Mikey Gal and all of them. He was good friends with them. They knew him well, and he got killed in a phone booth in Connecticut. Yes, that's true. He definitely did. Let's see. Let's see what else. What do we got here? Let me see. Was millions and jail time doing drugs and making drug money isn't free, comes with, I don't know, I don't understand that question. Where did Freddie Hott get caught at in Jamaica? He was with us in our number office. We all got busted, me, him, Carl Amato, a couple of our runners. We all got busted there right in the number office with all the work and the money. Let's see what else we got. Where's Junior after this Merriweather fight? I have no idea where he is. I'm sure they made money with it. I particularly didn't care for it. I don't think it should have happened, but he's not my son. You know, I just hope the kid don't get hurt in the future. You know, he seems like a nice kid, but, you know, I hope for him he doesn't get hurt. Who is your father close with? Sonny Francis. My father was very, very close with Sonny Francis. My father knew him since he was a kid. My father could have been with Sonny, He chose Charlie Wagons, but he had a choice to either go with Sonny Francise's family or Charlie's family, and for some reason he chose Charlie, but he loved Sonny. You know, he did a lot of time with Sonny. They were in a lot of prisons together. You know, our families used to go out together. My mother, you know, used to speak to Sonny's wife all the time on the phone. So our families had a relationship, but he loved Sonny. Hello, Neil from London. Hello. Thanks for, you know, joining us. Code all night is 5 months sober on Monday. Congratulations. That's a big deal. 5 months is 5 months. You know, one day is one day. One day for us is a miracle. Congratulations. Keep it up. Keep coming back. You know, it works. So hang in there. On a scale of 1 to 10, how upset are you still with Richie Gotti? I'm not upset with him. No, he's a boob. You know, he's who he is. You know, I never liked him. He probably never liked me. You know, I had that beef with him, like I told you, over the vending spot at the pork store. You know, he is what it is what it is. You know, everybody knows what he's about. You know, everybody knows who he is and what he's about. Let's see what else do we got. Anthony, did you know Paul Principal and Frank Russo, who were Tommy? Yeah, I knew them very well. You know, they were always with Tommy in Florida. You know, they used to hang out with my father. They were my father's co-defendants on his case. They were the kids that were with Tommy when he tried to kill Joe Dogs with the bat in the back of the pizzeria, and a woman walked in and they stopped, and, you know, they left Joe Dogs there for dead. And Joe Dogs, you know, made a deal with the FBI, and that's how my father got wrapped up in that case. And my father wound up getting 40 years. Yeah, I knew them good. They were tough kids, you know, they were definitely tough kids. They loved, you know, they were always with Tommy, but they were tough kids, and you know, they were dangerous. They were dangerous kids. These are coming in really fast. Let's see. Did the Gambinos ever have issues with the Colombian traffickers in New York? I don't know. I know we had an issue with the Cubans, you know, the Cuban Corporation, they were called, you know, over number spots. We had to sit down with them. They were opening up number spots in Jamaica, and they were paying a lot of money. They wanted to raise it to 800 to 1, which we had it at 500 to 1 and 550 to 1. And then we had to sit down with them, and we made a deal that we would open up our number spots. They had to be 2 blocks away from each other, and we kept the odds at 600 to 1. So, you know, there was, you know, and everything worked out. But I don't know about the Colombians, but I know we definitely had issues with the Cubans. They used to call themselves the corporation. They were all a big heroin organization, but they wanted to use the drug money to get into the number business because it was big business, you know. So they were opening up locations in Jamaica, and we had to have a sit down with them, and we straightened it all out. We told them, you know, either we all come to an arrangement or we start burning each other's number spots, and then nobody makes money. So we came to an agreement that we would open up 2 blocks away from each other, and we would only pay, you know, we would keep it at 600 to 1 because we couldn't compete with 800 to 1. We didn't have drug money like them. So they agreed, and that was it. And we went off from there. We made a lot of money with them. But I'm sure the Gambino family did business with the Colombians, with the coke business and the drug business. I'm sure that was going on. Let's see what else we got here. Who was the scariest guy you met in your life? You know, that's a question I get asked every time I go live. You know, I wasn't really ever scared of anybody personally. I mean, the scariest people I know that people talk about was probably Roy DeMeo. I mean, I know when he used to walk into the Ravenite, people used to get a little quiet. You know, when I heard stories about him chopping people up and everything, I guess probably he was probably one of the scariest guys around. But I was never personally scared of anybody. I mean, I knew people were dangerous, and I was aware of my surroundings. My father taught me always to be aware of surroundings. And my father always told me that don't ever underestimate anybody. Anybody's capable of killing you. You know, just because a person looks like, you know, a fuddy-duddy or a nerd doesn't mean he's not capable of killing you. So, but I wasn't really scared of anybody on a personal level. But I think, but he probably, Roy DeMayo was probably one of the scariest guys in the city because of how I used to see people act around him and things I heard about him. Let's see what else we got here. Hey, Anthony, David Collum, hello from Dallas. Hello, David. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. This is from Rob. Did you ever have any relationships with Westchester made men? You know, I had a lot of relationships with a lot of made men in the Bronx. They might have lived in Westchester. Did they hang out? Greg De Palma, he was from Westchester. He had the Westchester Premier Theater. I was good friends with him and his son, Greg Jr. So I guess that would be a yes. Let's see what else we got here. What does it say? Hate to break it to everyone. People in the White House get high time to time. Shaka, without a doubt. But whose coke was it? That's what I want to know. How could they not know after all this time? They don't know whose coke it was? Come on. I would bet my life they know whose coke it is, and they're covering up for whoever it is because it's probably one of Biden's guys. You know what I mean? It's probably one of Biden's guys. And this is why I say it's an insult to my intelligence, because if that was Trump in the White House, and they found coke in the White House, you could bet, rest assured, they would know who it is, and they would have a name, and the public would know, and the whole world and media would be up in arms if they found coke in the White House when Trump was president. You could bet on that, and that's a fact. Who proposed Agnello? He seemed like a lone wolf who wouldn't kick up. Agnello, Carmine the Bull, that's Vicky Gotti's husband. John straightened him out. You know, he had a ton of money, ton of money. Did Agro kill Tommy DeSimone? Definitely not. Tommy Agro had nothing to do with that. This is a good one. Did any made men put pineapple on pizza? Not that I know of. Pineapple on pizza is not Italian. That ain't happening. I think that's disgusting, personally, to put pineapple on pizza. Here's another question. Do I talk to Michael Francis? Yes, I do. We're friends. He's a great guy, very intelligent. He's very helpful to me. He's sort of like a mentor to us. You know, he was the first one to do this. He's the most successful person on this genre. You know, I have a lot of respect for Michael, and I look forward to doing things with him in the future. You know, we talk about, getting together to do something in the future, which I really hope it pans out. I would love to work with Michael on something. It would be an honor and a privilege to work with him on something. But yes, I do talk to him, and he's definitely a mentor to me, and I have a lot of respect for him. Do I know anyone from the Chicago outfit? I don't know anybody personally, but I'll tell you this: in 1977, when I married my first wife, Alice, I received gifts from Chicago. I received envelopes from guys in Chicago that was sent to my father. So he knew people in Chicago. He did business with them, but I didn't know them personally, but I did receive envelopes from them on my birthday from Chicago, New Orleans, Pennsylvania, Buffalo. I mean, I got a lot of money at my first wedding, and I got envelopes from a lot of the cities because my father was, well known, and he was friends with everybody. I personally met so many people. I met the boss of Buffalo, Joe Tadera, and his son, Joe Tadera Jr., who's the boss of Buffalo now. I met the underboss from Cleveland, Peanuts. I had to sit down with him over his son. I met the boss of Pennsylvania, Russ. I met the underboss, Billy, who now they wrote a book about that's coming out soon. I met, so many people in all the years I was in the street, so many people that became bosses. But I didn't really know anybody personally from Chicago. But I like Chicago. I go to Chicago. I love that city. Oh, let's see what else do we got here. Any Detroit partnership stories? No, I lived in Detroit for a while. but I didn't know any of the mob guys when I was there. I was sort of, not talking to them, but I lived in Detroit for a while. I have good friends there. But I didn't know any of the wise guys there, but I know stories about them. I know they owned the bridge that goes to Canada. That's amazing. A wise guy owns a bridge that connects the United States to Canada. I mean, his grandfather must have built it. The mob owns a bridge in Detroit that connects the United States to Canada. How's that sound? Check it out. It's true. And how do I know that? Because an FBI agent told me that when I was in Detroit. I used to meet the FBI to get my money every month. And we were driving by the bridge, and he told me the whole story about the bridge, that wise guys owned the bridge. One family that's hooked up with the crime family there, who's a made man, owns the bridge. Built the bridge. Here's another one from Matthew Holmes. Did your dad tell you stories about Albert Anastasia? Can you tell us one if he did? My father told me that Albert Anastasia was the toughest guy he ever met. He told me that when he walked in the room, people stood at attention. He told me that sometimes when guys went on hits, he would stay up at the corner and watch. He said he was, he was a killer. He would read the newspaper, and that's why they called him the high executioner. He was, my father told me that he had a potato farm upstate, and after you did a piece of work, he used to ask if you wanted to go hide out there. And, a lot of times guys went up there to hide out and never came back. And my father used to tease me and go, I used to tell him, don't worry, Albert, I have my own places to hide. I don't need to go up to the potato farm. So, my father always told me good things about him. My father really looked up to him. As crazy as that may sound, but he did. Okay, these questions are coming in really fast and furious here. I'm trying to see what we got here. Who had the best veal Parmesan sandwich in New York City? My mother had the best veal color Parmesans. So what is your opinion on the Mikey Scars calling out Sammy thing? Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I know that's going on. Mikey's is a friend of mine. Sammy's a friend of mine. I talked to both of them. I wish it wasn't going on. I'm not going to get in the middle of it. To elaborate on it, I just wish it wasn't going on. I wish they could, kiss and make up, and I hope maybe that's in the future. We all go back a long way together, the three of us, in the street. And I just wish it would, it would get better, and I would never get in the middle of it. I care for both of them equally. They're both friends of mine, like I said, and I just wish that, it could be straightened out at some point, because I would love to work with both of them. Did John Gotti have an affair with Mark Gastineau's wife? Yes, he did. And so did Jay Black, and so did other people. But yes, he did. He had an affair with her, and he also had an affair with Steven Seagal's wife, but she was his girlfriend at the time. So yeah, he had an affair with her. Definitely had an affair with Mark Gastineau's wife, who was gorgeous. She was gorgeous. It says, if you could go back and take a different path in life, what profession would you have pursued? It's funny because I probably, when I was a kid, I used to be a good writer. I used to write a lot of stories, and I always wanted to be a sports writer when I was a little kid. When I was a kid, and I used to write stories, and I used to write letters to Mickey Mantle and ask him for his autograph, and they would send me pictures with his autograph on it. And I always wanted to be that, be a sports writer. So, maybe if I had another life, that's what I would have been, a sports writer. It's nice to think I would have been. Oh, here it is. Wait, let's see. One can only imagine the level of trafficking the mob can do owning a bridge connecting two nations. Canadian grows cannabis would flow. I don't think they need to do illegal things. I mean, they make millions just on tolls. So, I don't think they're doing anything illegal on the bridge. That would be stupid of them. Tell us about the Murder and Corp crew. Where who they looked up to. I don't know who they looked up to, but I know my father looked up to them. I married Happy Mayone's great niece, Alice Mayone. I knew their sons, Larry Abadando, Larry Bacala, his brother Junior Bacala. They were the Dash's sons, so I grew up with them, knowing them. I heard stories about Murder Inc. I heard many stories about Happy Mayone. Of course, like I said, I married one of his nieces. Albert Mayone was the guy that introduced my father to Charlie Wagons, that got my father, involved with the Gambino family. They were a bad crew, Reservoir Dog, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. His question is, did you know the cartels in Mexico and Colombia refer to themselves as the Mafia? Maya, the Sicilian, and that woman, what's her name? That Colombian, that crazy woman that was killing everybody. She named her sons after after characters in The Godfather. So yeah, definitely. Something Putz for a donation. Thank you. He wants to know if I'm a Jet or a Giant fan. I'm a Jet fan. From when I was a kid, I loved Joe Namath. I was a big Joe Namath fan. So when I started getting into football, at Super Bowl III, when I was, 12 years old, that's when I really started paying attention. And I loved Joe Namath, and I became a Jet fan, and I suffered all these years. And hopefully now with Aaron Rodgers, maybe things would be different. My brother was a big Giant fan, so we had a lot of arguments throughout the years because he's still a Giant fan and I'm still a Jet fan. But I'm a Jet fan because Joe Namath was my favorite player when I was a kid. What do you do for work today? Besides my podcast and the shows I do, I work at a detox. I'm a clinical dependency technician. I've been working in this field for almost 10 years now. I put myself back to school. I was a counselor at one time. I was a case manager. Now counseling, I'm, getting ready to turn a certain age. I'm getting older. It's a lot of work. You need a lot of patience. So I have a little different position now. I'm a chemical dependency technician. It's not as much documentation that I have to do. So, but I still work in the field. I'm in a detox now and not in a treatment center. Years ago, I worked up in a treatment center. Now I work in a detox to get people detoxed off drugs and alcohol, and then we send them to treatment centers. But I'm involved in recovery. I make meetings, I sponsor people, and so I'm heavily involved in helping people from addiction. Annika Rossman, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. She wants to know, it's not too late to be a sports writer and chase your dreams. Why did the Jewish Mafia seem to disappear even though the Italians continued? That's a good question. I guess I think it's a little too late for me to be a sports writer. I'm happy doing what I do. I'm happy to be working in treatment, and helping people. And, I'm trying, I'm in the process, I have a lot of deals on the fire, with, books and movies, and hopefully some of that will pan out. I really want to get my story out there. I think it's an interesting story. It's about survival, overcoming, I think it could be helpful to people and helpful to myself. As far as the Jewish Mafia, my father knew them well. Back in the 70s, my father used to meet in this bar every Friday in Brooklyn, and they would come. They were always dressed up with fedoras on, I remember. And my father would tell me those were Jewish wise guys. And my father used to service them. He had a whole crew of them that he serviced. What happened to them? They really did disappear. I don't know. I'm sure there's Jewish tough guys around. I'm sure they're still mobbed up, but they're so low key now. But I don't think they disappeared forever. I just don't think them out in the front as they used to be. But I knew them well. They got a lot of respect. My father had a lot of respect for them. Let's see. Everybody too, before I go on, please, everybody that's on now, please hit the subscribe button. hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to reformedgangsters.com. That's a big help to me. The more subscriptions I have, the better it is. So please, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the button. So here's another one from Jimmy. Cheerio, Anthony. I hope all is well with you and your family. I'm curious to know you handled doing the 5th step and eventually the 9th step because of all the illegal stuff. Take care and thank you. So, I did my first 5th step, believe it or not. I wrote my first 4th step. For those of you who don't know anything about the 12 steps, I'm in the 12-step program. So I wrote my first 4th step, believe it or not, in Attica prison, in a jail cell. It was kind of tough. And I mailed it out because at that point I didn't care who read it. I wanted the pain to go away. And I took a moral inventory of myself and I wrote my 4th step in that cell and I mailed it out to my sponsor, Stevie, who lived in the Bronx. And he drove up to Attica and I did my first 5th step in the visiting room with him. And, and I let go and I saw a lot of stuff in that 5th step. And I let go of a lot of resentments I had towards my brother-in-law, Louis, who cooperated against me with my mother. I just saw so much stuff, the damage I did, the parts I played in my relationships, the parts I played in my life. And it was life-changing, my first 4th to 5th step. But I have wrote many 4th steps throughout the years, and I have done many 5th steps. And the 9th step was amazing because, I got to make amends to people who I heard. I got to make an amends to my first wife, Alice, who eventually got sick and passed away. And I think that if I didn't have a 9th step in my life, I would have never made that amends to her. And when she died, I would have been guilt-ridden, so it was just amazing. It just helped me recover and helped me, let go and get humble and have some humility. So yeah, those are 2 very, very important steps. And I saw in my 5th step, when I did my 5th step with my sponsor, I actually saw my 8th step list. I made that list of the people that I needed to make amends to. And then when I got to the 9th step, I made amends to the people that I could have. There's some people I couldn't make amends to because it would have hurt other people. But they were life-changing steps for me. All 12 steps are actually life-changing. Did you ever meet John DeMeo but I met Sam the plumber. He was the boss of the Cavalcanti family. He used to actually come to my father's restaurant in Florida. He actually had a condo right across the street from where my father had his restaurant, Dano's, on North Bay Village in Miami. And Sam the plumber would come into my father's restaurant for dinner every once in a while. And he was a nice guy, very quiet, believe it or not. And my father got along really good with him. And I also met a lot of wise guys from the Cavalcanti family when I was in Schuylkill. They were there doing time, so I met many of them there. How many years in the can did you do? I did about 14 years all told. The last bit I did was 8 years and 3 months. So I got to have some time in. Where was the old hangout for the Carmine Fatico, East New York, before they moved to Ozone Park? That's a good question. I really don't know. As far back as I can remember, Charlie hung out in the Bergen Hunt Fish Club. I know he had a tattoo stand in Coney Island, but that was before my time. But when my father met him, I think he hung out in a bar. I don't even know if he had a club in East New York. He hung out in a bar, but I don't remember him having a club in my lifetime. He may have, but I don't remember it. The first time I met him was on 101st Avenue in the Bergen, and my whole life he was in the Bergen. So, and every time I saw him, it was either there at a Raven night or he was at my house at a party or at a wedding, him and his brother Danny. How was the Chin Gigante? I never met him. I saw him a couple of times walking on Sullivan Street. My father met him, throughout the years before he was the boss. My father knew him from when they were younger, young wise guys in Manhattan. They both got pulled in for shooting Frank Costello. I know my father used to tell me a story all the time when Frank Costello got shot and wounded in the hallway They picked up my father and took him to the hallway and made him run up and down because they said the guy waddled, was because the chin was built like my father, stocky, short, kind of stocky built, like my father, resembled my father's built and everything. And back then, my father said any mob hit, they scooped my father up, put him in lineups. He was just, because they knew he was doing a lot of work for the family back then, and they knew he was a shooter, and he would get scooped up all the time, he told me, and put in lineups and everything. But he told me, so I said, how do I know you're not the guy that shot Frank Costello? How do I know it was really the chin? And my father used to look at me and go, because if it was me, he would have been fucking dead. And I used to go, whoa, like, all right, so my father knew the chin good. Was being a Gambino like playing for the Yankees compared to the rest of the families? I don't know about being a Gambino, but I know about being Fat Andy's son. It was like being on the Yankees. I mean, we had, my brother and I, we had carte blanche in Manhattan. Anywhere we went, doors were open for us, like we were like princes. My friend used to tease me and say we were like the Kennedys. We got in anywhere we wanted. We sat in the first row at concerts, orchestra seats, Broadway plays. We lived large. We never waited online to get in clubs, the Copa, anywhere we went for years and years. We were treated like royalty, but not only me, even all of us, Buddy, Neil's son, Buddy was treated like royalty. His sister, Tony, there was other wise guys, Guido Dolls and Eddie Dolls, who you never even hear people talk about them anymore. They were like real tough guys. They were in the, Raven Eye crew. They were with Tommy Rabbit, they were with Albert Anastasia. Their kids, their sons hung out with us. We were all treated like royalty. We were wise guys' sons, that we were all, we were treated great. We had a great time back then. It was a great time in my life. Did it have anything to do with the Gambinos? They were members of the Gambino family. Our fathers were, and we got treated accordingly. Freddie 64, Anthony, do you know Frankie Presto, who had the salvage yard down by Shea Stadium? Yeah, I did know him. I don't think, we did business with a lot of these guys. I had a chop shop and I had a stolen car ring, and we were doing business with all these guys, Frankie, all of them. We were selling front ends to all of them at one time. So yeah, we did business with everybody. We were stealing 10 cars a night. I had a major stolen car ring, and I had my own 3 chop shops going. So yeah, we did a lot of damage with cars. Joseph Garcia, I need help, brother. I'm suffering from alcohol addiction. All I could say is, my friend, try to get into treatment, call my helpline, 855-963-2113. Try to get into treatment, try to get into detox. If you can't do that, make an NA meeting, make an AA meeting, raise your hand, tell them you're suffering, tell them you need help. People will reach out to you, and, just hang in there, you know what I mean? You can't cure this by a miracle, you got to put some work into it, but you have to start somewhere, get into a detox, get into a treatment center, or if that doesn't work, then just make a meeting. Who killed Gene Borello's cousin? Vito Guzzo killed Gene's cousin. Was over a girl. I think over a girl when he was in prison. That's who killed Gene's cousin. It was over. It was Vito Guzzo, who I think pleaded guilty to it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. What did my father think of Tommy DeSimone? My father liked Tommy DeSimone up. He liked him a lot. I liked him a lot. It's funny. Tommy my father had a good relationship with Tommy and his brother Bobby, who actually was my father's co-defendant in Florida, Bobby DeSimone. We always used to tease Bobby and say, we know you got Tommy's money. And he used to laugh, but Tommy was a really good guy, crazy, like they said. He would come to my father's bar, Bulldogs. My father had a bar in Brooklyn in City Line called Bulldogs back in the 70s, in the early 70s. And Tommy would come there because he used to hang out with this guy, Paulie G, who was with my father, and Tommy was with the Lucchese's. And my father was very close with Paulie Vario, who Tommy was with. My father was very close with the Varios, or Paulie and his brother Babe, who was another wise guy, and Tommy knew of their relationship. So Tommy would come to Boldocs to meet up with Paulie G, and I would be there, and he would tell me, you want to come out with us? And I was like 19, 20, and of course I wanted to go out with them. You know, they used to go to, you know, the best clubs around, Carmine's Cloud Room, Conrad's Cloud Room, the Hippo in Manhattan. I mean, they were going to the best clubs that were around at the time, and he would tell my father, I'm going to take your son Anthony out with me tonight. And my father would tell him, all right, but don't get my son in any trouble. And Tommy would go, no trouble. And we would get in the car. And as soon as we got in the car, he used to pull out the coke came out, the joints came out, and by the time we got to Manhattan or wherever we were going, we were already lit up, the party already started, but my father got along good with Tommy. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now. I want to thank everybody for, tuning in. It was a pleasure. These were going to start getting longer and longer, these lives. So, please, once again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button because, you'll get content. You'll be able to ask me questions. Don't forget about July 22nd. Take a shot at the Mafia Trivia Boss Answer. Mafia Trivia questions, get cash prizes. Sign up on my Patreon. That's another thing. If you're not a Patreon member, please do that. It's only $5 a month. It all helps. It all helps with my content. It all helps me present a better show, do better for you guys, and it just makes everything a lot easier, and I could get more content out, and we could have better production. I'm in this, for you and myself. This is not a one-way street. I'm not in this only for myself. I'm in this to, entertain you and bring you some pleasure, bring you some happiness. And when I could help somebody along the way, that's an extra bonus for me. So I just have one more question left. It says, what is it, respect for your father or fear? My father told me, my father had both. My father had respect and people feared him. And my father always told me the strength of the Mafia was fear. Well, honestly, what he told me was the strength of the Mafia was that everybody feared them and nobody cooperated. And that's not true today. Unfortunately, I even cooperated at the end of the day, and I have to live with that. But you know what? When in his day, that was their strength. In his day, everybody feared them and nobody cooperated. And it ain't like that anymore. It ain't like that anymore. So and the last question, the last but the not least is, did I have a nickname? And I did. I had a nickname. People called me Rouge after my last name, Ruggiano. Growing up in my neighborhood, everybody called me Rouge. Even my friends' parents called me Rouge. And if anybody calls me Rouge today, they have to know me for 100 years. So that's my name. And you believe it or not, all the indictments I was ever on, that AKA was only ever on one indictment, Rouge, but that was my nickname, Rouge. So, all right, this is definitely the last question. Have you ever heard of any civilians entering a social club to get an autograph or photo of the most famous wise guys? No, but I did see, and I was in John Gotti's company on 2 occasions when he signed an autograph. One was in a restaurant. A couple walked up to him and he gave them an autograph. And once was in the street in Manhattan, walking in the street in Manhattan, someone stopped him and asked him for an autograph. So I did see John Gotti on 2 occasions sign autographs, but I never heard of anybody walking into a club and asking for an autograph. I'm sure it may have happened, but I'm not aware of it. So I want to thank everybody once again for tuning in. And I'll say it again, if you haven't subscribed, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It was a pleasure. And I'll see everybody real soon. And these lives will keep getting longer and longer. I see there's a lot of participation. The questions were coming in fast and furious tonight. I hope everybody had a good time. I hope I answered most of your questions, and see you again soon. Have a good night. Stay safe and behave yourselves.